point of the exam, you've written everything, and all you have to do is check your work, okay? Now, some people skip this step. That's very bad because they end up losing a band because of this, right? They either make a spelling mistake, a silly spelling mistake that's obvious right away, or, you know, it's a comma or it doesn't make sense, or the writing is messy and they could have fixed it, right? So I always say check your work. So first you plan, and you plan for max 2 minutes. And then you want to leave 5 minutes at the end to check your work. Okay? So that leaves you like about half an hour in the middle, maybe more, to write your paragraph. And that's fine. That's enough time. So at the end, review your work. Always. Okay? Or you can even close your eyes for a couple of seconds. And then imagine that somebody else were reading the paper. So when you have just written the paper, it's very easy for you to understand what you were saying because you are the author of it. But you have to imagine, and it's going to be true, right? It's going to be an examiner checking your paper. So he or she doesn't know what you thought when you were writing it. If it doesn't make sense to him, you're gonna be the one losing marks. So you have to pretend that it's somebody else reading the paper, and if they were to read it for the first time with no prior knowledge of who you are or what you wrote, would it make sense to them? Right? You have to keep that in mind. So how you review your work. So you read it from top to bottom. So, you know, you read normally as we usually would. You read that to make sure that it makes sense, that your writing makes sense, that the sentences make sense, that the ideas flow from one idea to the other, that it sounds good. Then, once you've done that, you read from top to bottom. So you start from the last sentence and then you read from top to bottom. Why you're reading that way, is to check for your grammar mistakes. When you're reading from top to bottom, you don't pay attention to grammar because you're focused on if it makes sense or not. But when you're reading from bottom to top, you have to pay attention to the sentences because they're not in order, so it doesn't make sense. So you're going to check for grammar, and you're going to check for spelling mistakes and punctuation mistakes, right? So you're going to do from top to bottom and from bottom to top when you're checking your work, okay? And that's pretty much how you review your work for task 1 or task 2 for any piece of writing that you do. Even if it's not for IELTS, I always check it like this because you end up finding more mistakes when you check from bottom to top, like grammar mistakes that you wouldn't have found if you were reading just, you know, simply, because your brain automatically fills in the mistakes that you made. It's a thing that we do. It's genetically inputted in us. So it's important that you read both ways and leave at least 5 minutes to check your work. Okay, it's very important to do that.